Hello, welcome to From Caracas. I'm Laura Prada. Today we are once again here at the 25th São Paulo Forum, where we are talking about the fights that the social movement and political parties in Latin America and the rest of the world are developing, and the causes that they have historically been bringing forward, like for example the cause of the Sahrawi people, and to talk and to understand better the cause of this fight and why spaces like the São Paulo Forum are taking into consideration this. We are meeting with Omar Mansour, the Minister for Latin America and the Caribbean of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic, and he will share with us some ideas of why is that cause being here present at the São Paulo Forum and why it's important this international support. Thank you, Minister. Welcome to From Caracas. What does your delegation expect from this 25th São Paulo Forum, which historically has within its guidelines main topics like the self-determination of the Sahrawi people?
Thank you very much. I think the forum has always been a place where Saharan people have been able to be present all these years of forums during a dozen of years. And it has always been a reason for meeting with all the political forces of the continent and at the same time being able to expose the situation of the Saharan people, their struggle, the challenges we have to face forward, and we can always rely on an important solidarity. Here we have participated in both the plenary and the commission that works about Africa, and simultaneously we have presented a resolution project about the situation of the Saharan people, the Saharan Republic, in front of the circumstance we are currently facing by the Moroccan invasion in a part of our country, and at the same time being able to be solidary with other struggles that nowadays are set out, between them the Venezuelan people's struggle.
What does your delegation expect from this 25th São Paulo Forum, which historically has within its guidelines main topics like the self-determination of the Sahrawi people?
The Saharan people, as you know, has been colonized almost 100 years by Spain, and from 1975, when they were prepared to be able to get their independence and crown that decolonization process, it is seen how that decolonization process was interrupted by an invasion from Morocco. In a first moment, jointly with Great Britain, that has created a condemnation by the Saharan people, but at the same time has created a global solidarity that has been increasing to the point of having currently an international consensus regarding Saharan people's rights in relation to independence and against the invasion from Morocco. That consensus has grown these last years, when Morocco renounced to the referendum organization trying to seek for subterfuges to block the process of the United Nations organization, with lately the birth of an intifada in the Saharan occupied territory. And that intifada also generated a lot of sympathy and support by human rights organizations due to there has been a violent repression by Morocco. And that has been painful for the Saharan people, but at the same time, it has been an agglutinative for bigger support and solidarity with our cause. Our cause is brought up to the United Nations organization as a decolonization problem that must be finished. It is brought up in the African Union, which is the organization in which we are members since 1984 and has recognized, in fact, the Saharan Republic. It is brought up in the non-aligned countries movement, and in all these organizations, there are many things in common that are the support for the Saharan people, the necessity of solving in a peaceful way the problem on the base on the organization of a referendum, and the condemnation and disapproval of that violation of human rights in the territory.
Minister, now so that our audience understands a little bit better about the struggle of the Sahrawi people that has been waging for so many years, how can you explain this a little bit so our audience understands?
Yes, the struggle by itself is a struggle of a people for its independence and sovereignty. As I told you, that struggle whose objective is to give freedom to Saharans in their lands, sovereignty on their lands, and to give them control of their resources. Morocco has occupied the Western Sahara in 1975 by using invasion, also in the eastern part of the territory, with the main purpose of plundering the Saharan resources. Sahara, as a country, is a nation that has very important natural resources and mineral resources such as phosphate, traces of oil, and natural gas. Iran, a coast of 1,200 square kilometers, immensely rich in fishing and gold deposits. Of course, Morocco noticed that it is a small population with enormous resources. Based on that, they have decided to invade. This problem has been presented in the International Court of Law by Morocco, and we won the verdict. The verdict was in our support, explaining that Morocco and Great Britain don't have sovereignty ties on the Saharan territory. Thus, the doctrine of the United Nations Organization regarding self-determination of peoples must be applied to the Saharan territory. But it wasn't enough for Morocco, and they continued with their military occupation of this part of the territory. There has been a liberation war that have been fought by us in both military and diplomatically, and that war was finished on 1991 when Morocco affected disrespecting the application of the Saharan people's rights and the organization of a referendum in the Saharan territory that set out two options. One, the annexation to Morocco, the another one, the independence. However, we had to determine the electoral body. Then, when the electoral body is determined by United Nations organization, which I think that the United Nations Organization's mission for Western Sahara was the settlement of bluebirds in order to stop the fire between these two countries. Thanks to that, Morocco went backward, because they saw that the Moroccan colonists couldn't be put as voters of the referendum within Western Sahara. Since there, the United Nations Organization's efforts have been sabotaged, playing with time to be able to plunder those resources. Nowadays, phosphate, fishing, and gold are being plundered. This is being done with European campaigns. Recently, we have been positioned against the European Union and Morocco to stop that plundering. That dispute was won by us on February 27th, 2018, in which it was recognized that the European Union and Morocco don't have any right to make use of those Saharan natural resources based on an agreement between them without the consent of the Saharan people.
For how long can the Sahrawi people keep fighting, resisting this pressure in order to achieve independence and self-determination?
When we started this fight, it was thought to be a long-term fight. I mean, any time limit was established because we know that the interest that Morocco's ambitions cherish are linked to those resources. So, we defeat them militarily at the time. Currently, they're paying these chains and they're trying to obstruct politically the process of United Nations organization, and we will continue fighting through all the means at our disposition. A struggle in which all the options are set out. But above all, we prioritize if the process of the United Nations can lead into an organization of a referendum in a coming period.
Within that international support that the Sahrawi Republic have gotten is the support from Venezuela. How has the Sahrawi Republic received that support? How do you see it? And how do you see that this hand that Venezuela has laid to you?
The position of Venezuela started in 1982. Venezuela. The government of Venezuela in 1982 recognized the Saharan Republic and has accepted the establishment of an embassy here in Venezuela, where we have had a very important reception by the Venezuelan people and the political forces. And that support has been increasing over the years and, above all, also recently with the arrival of Chavism, that has had manners as well as the political support. A support in cooperation has been known in terms of education, in which Saharan students are educated in the Venezuelan universities. At the same time, Venezuela has financed a training school in the Saharan territory, which is called Escuela Bolivar School, that prepares the youth in high school to be able to get access to universities. And in the third aspect, also currently, Venezuela is present with us for water prospecting and researching in those desert zones where water is an extraordinarily important resource. When we proposed it at the moment, it received a great support by Chavez, and he personally insisted on Venezuela to be present with Saharans in that domain. We consider that, in spite of the difficulties that Venezuela is facing, Venezuela has always had a position extraordinarily positive, extraordinarily solidary, human with the Saharan Republic. And for us, it is a great reason of pride, having friends like Venezuelans that have known in every moment how to be in the Saharan cause, and always in an unselfish way, a consequent way, with their principles and objectives.
Recently, the government of Morocco recognized the figure of the self-proclaimed president Juan Guaidó in Venezuela. How does the Sahrawi Republic see this attitude from Morocco?
Well, I think that Morocco is always chasing any opportunity to be able to blackmail the Venezuelan government, since they have seeing that proximity that Venezuela keeps with the Saharan Republic. They have always sought for the manner to make Venezuela renounce to the diplomatic relationships and the recognition of the Saharan Republic. But they have never reached it. Since 1982, they have been insisting on it each year with the consecutive Venezuelan governments. And I think they won't achieve it with the current Bolivarian government that has had an attitude always consequent with its objectives and principles and has been tremendously solidary with this cause. We think that Morocco will always seek for means of blackmail. We consider that the logical and consequent attitude is to look and endorse the dialogue in Venezuela, the peace for Venezuela, and that's the way to help those people solve their problem in a peaceful way, avoiding blackmail from this kind of ploy made by Morocco. In reality, it is neither for love to Guaido nor someone else. Morocco just loves itself and is tremendously selfish and user of any kind of resources to be able to blackmail.
Now I ask you, these spaces like Sao Paulo Forum are necessary, so political parties meet social movements. These political parties gather at the forum, at the Sao Paulo Forum. They carry messages to the cause of the Sahrawi people, to the end of colonialism in Puerto Rico, to the end of the blockade in Cuba, and of course the blockade in Venezuela. In what order of socialism and this social movement and left-wing parties also make their voices heard? Which other scenarios can they raise their voices?
I think that we have set out the group of parties and African political forces that have been present. The Sao Paulo Forum, at the same time, expresses about Africa and Asia, creating groups that can work about those continents and make this a convergence of solidarity by the three continents for the sake of fighting for common interests, creating mechanisms because it can't remain as statements of solidarity, but progressively creating mechanisms able to translate those statements of solidarity in more concrete things in favor of the fair struggle of these peoples for their sovereignty and independence.
Is it possible to bring the Sao Paulo Forum to Africa?
I think it is feasible because in Africa there are a large number of countries and there are progressist forces for the defense of their sovereignty and they're on the same wavelength that the proposals made here in Latin America. And we think that all that can lead to a larger proximity, to a larger understanding and a larger knowledge between each one will make more effective their fights for the common objective, which is the defense of our sovereignty and independence.
Thank you.